I cracked open a fresh beer as I walked out onto the front porch of the log cabin. The North Georgia mountain air reminded me how chilly it had gotten since we'd gone inside. It was a nice 70 degrees only a few hours ago on the golf course, but the temperature had followed the sun on its descent. "You cold, man? You can bring a blankie out here if you want," Chris asked with a smug grin as he pulled out a cigar and cutter. "No thanks, asshole. It just caught me off guard. It dropped a good bit since we've been in," I replied, trying my best to hide my annoyance at him calling me out. He didn't know. It wasn't his fault. "Man, sure is a shame," Scott said with a faux forlorn expression on his face. "I remember a time when you swam bare-ass naked over our lake in the middle of winter. Look at you now, needing a blankie and some hot cocoa just to sit outside." We all laughed at the memory. I didn't even register the insult he threw at me. Why did I do that again? For a six-pack? I think it was a six-pack actually, natty lights to boot. Possibly the worst deal ever struck. Chris's laughter turned into coughs as he choked on his lit cigar smoke. God, the smoke smelled good. I never claimed to be a great negotiator. If I'd had better friends, I could have avoided that. You assholes could have just let me drink your beer. Now, what kind of legal 21-year-old adults would we have been if we'd let a minor drink on our watch? Scott asked sincerely. Not a very good one, that's for sure, added Chris. We were just doing our civic duties, but seeing you swimming across that lake was worth letting that slide for a night. We all burst out into laughter again. It had been way too long since we'd gotten together like this. You want one? Scotty asked, looking at me. An unlit cigar sitting between his fingers, begging to be smoked, begging me to smoke it. It took every ounce of my being to not snatch it out of his hand and light it up. I'm good, thanks, man. They didn't know about my diagnosis. I had only started treatments a week ago, so I still had my hair at least. I didn't want to ruin what was supposed to be a happy bachelor trip. No need to lay the news on them now. Just wait until the end of the weekend. Whoa, what's going on with you? Chris asked. I was always the smoker in the group. Didn't matter if it was cigarettes, black and milds, or pot, I would smoke it. I knew this was going to raise some alarms with the guys. What do you mean? I've never seen you not smoke when given the opportunity, man. Like we've left you alone in a bar for 5 minutes, and you end up bumming cigarettes off some dude outside. And now you don't want to smoke with me on my bachelor trip? Chris said with a sense of interrogation in his voice. He nursed that beer we gave him on the course too. He just kept swapping them out for new ones, Scott added, leaning in for the interrogation. Shit, how did he notice that? Well, I have always been a lightweight. That's why you guys would only bet me a six-pack, I said, trying to keep my voice level. Doesn't explain the smoking, Chris said, looking off into the trees at something. Okay, guys, I have something to tell you. I was trying to wait until after the weekend, but you guys seem insistent on getting it out. I tried to keep my voice from breaking and not show how scared I was. You see, guys, hold up, I gotta take a piss first, Scott said, jumping up, cigar in his teeth and beer in hand. Dude, seriously? I looked at him as he stepped off the porch. What? It sounds serious. I can't give you my full attention if I'm trying not to piss myself, can I? He yelled back as he walked off into the surrounding woods. I sat back in my chair, trying to choke the lump in my throat back down. Chris nudged me. Don't let him get to you. He's always liked picking on you the most. Yeah, I know I can handle him. I just didn't. I let the sentence trail off. I didn't know what I was trying to say. It wasn't Scott or his asshole attitude. It was the whole situation. Having to tell my best friends when we are supposed to be celebrating Chris. The attention wasn't supposed to be on poor old me. Didn't what? It can wait until he's done pissing. I don't want to have to say it twice. Okay, man. I could tell Chris wasn't sure what to say. I had never been one to open up or talk about my feelings. Hell, I was going through a divorce, and the guys didn't even know that until I had a new girlfriend. But some of that was due to us never seeing each other anymore. What do you think about my place? Chris asked, motioning to the surrounding wilderness. It was nice and quiet, no one for miles around, or it seemed like that anyway. I couldn't deny that it creeped me out a little, though. The quiet was too, well, quiet. It's nice. Not sure if I could do it all the time, though. A little too cabin in the woods, I said, looking around and taking in the smell of the pine with the smoke of Chris's cigar. God, it smelled good. Why not? You always like to be left alone. I still do, but I also like to know people are near, and if I want something, I can order it. I looked at him with a smile. Yeah, but you can't really put a price on the beauty of it. Look at this place, man. Untouched, just nature. Look at that fog rolling over the drive there. You don't get that when you have too many people around, Chris said, pointing out toward the trees. I looked out and saw the fog he was referring to. It was entrancing. A thick gray cloud was moving toward the house slowly. The cloudiest fog I'd ever seen, a wall of gray moving through the trees, eating them as it went. Christ, is that normal, man? It's just so thick I can't see anything past it, I asked Chris, still staring at the encroaching cloud. I wouldn't say normal, but it happens occasionally. It's a sight, isn't it? It sure was, and it was moving fast too. Scotty, where was Scotty? He had been gone longer than he should have been, right? Where is Scotty? I asked, looking around the trees that weren't covered by fog. I'm not sure, he couldn't have gotten lost out there, Chris said as he took another drag from his cigar and released it into the air. But he has been gone a minute. Hey, asshole, are you okay? He hollered out. Yeah, I'm here. I was just looking at this fog. I can't believe how thick this stuff is, Scotty said as he appeared from the trees, walking back towards the house. That's what we were saying. Thought you might have gotten lost in it out there, I said, feeling a little more relaxed now. Not only had the serious conversation been avoided, but also we had a brand new topic to focus on. It stopped right before it got to me, or else I might have gotten lost. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face in there, Scotty said as he walked into the house, still smoking his cigar, and grabbed himself another beer. Chris looked at me, rolling his eyes, and said, Hey, asshole, keep the smoke out of my house, please. Sorry, I like to have a good time. Sue me, Scotty sneered. Soon after, we found ourselves going down memory lane, the hotel we got kicked out of because Scott set off the fire alarm with a joint, the golf course that banned us for playing 36 when we only paid for 18, and random college parties where Scott ended up so trashed that it became a task to get him home in one piece. Man, we've changed, Chris said as he got up and started down the steps. Where are you going? I asked. Gotta piss. You want to hold it? Chris asked as he walked off into the trees as I shot him a bird in response. Why do you think we don't see each other anymore? Scotty asked, turning the conversation serious. I don't know. Times have changed, I guess. We all have jobs and wives that keep us busy. It's not as easy as just hopping on our bikes anymore. It was only an hour drive for all of us to meet up, but it seemed impossible the few times we tried to plan it. Yeah, maybe, but we should do this more often. Not even the whole weekend thing, just going and playing golf and shooting the shit like old times, Scotty said, sounding nostalgic. He was reaching the sad stage of drunk now. We definitely should try to make it a monthly thing, I lied, knowing in a month or two I would be a full-blown cancer patient. Chemo treatment having ripped through me to the point the last thing I was thinking about was playing golf. Probably wouldn't even be able to ride a cart without feeling like my bones were made of glass, let alone swing a club. He didn't have to know that tonight. I'd give him one more weekend of happy plans for the future before I told him that the time had run out on the old times of us three. Scotty didn't believe me anyway. The look he gave me told me that. He just nodded and turned his head back to the trees, getting darker now. The fog's moving in again, is all he said, and it was. It was 20 feet away now, looking closer slowly like a snake slowly tightening around its prey. That's when we heard it. It was Chris, and he was screaming. Not much of a scream, more of a yelp, like when I just stepped on a branch weird or twisted my ankle. A yelp that comes out involuntarily but is cut off immediately. We remained seated but yelled for him to see if he was okay. I bet his drunk ass ran into a tree in that damn fog, Scotty stated, trying to sound sure of his words but failing. His eyes remained looking out in the direction Chris went, but nothing could be seen but fog. It was almost at the house, not a stone's throw away when it stopped. You okay there, boss? Scotty yelled out into the gray shroud. Yeah, I'm great. Chris's voice came back from the trees. Relief washed through my body, and I felt silly for getting so concerned over nothing. Scotty let out a laugh and looked over at me, saying he was worried too, but trying not to show it. We could hear Chris coming back now, branches snapping under his shoes, and then it stopped. Right on the edge of the fog, his steps stopped. We could see his boots with his legs sprouting from them, but that was it. From the knees up, his body blended into the fog, covering his thick frame. Scotty and I both stared at the feet, waiting for him to step out and walk back up the steps, but that moment never came. "Are you just gonna stand there or come back up on the porch?" I asked, trying not to let my nerves show. "Oh, I like it down here." Chris's voice floated out of the fog. It was definitely his voice, but something wasn't right. It was like his voice, if you took out everything that made it a person's voice. It was like someone is sarcastic and says, "No, I believe you," but they don't have enough care to make it sound convincing. His voice was hollow. Scotty looked at me with a look of confusion and fear that I'm sure was returned. "What are you looking at?" the disembodied voice asked. "We are wondering why you're just standing there, man. Why not come back up here and get another beer?" Scotty asked. I noticed his cigar had gone out and the hand holding it was shaking. "Oh, I like it down here," the voice returned. "You don't want to come back up here with us?" "Oh, I might in a bit." The mechanical voice of Chris let this statement linger in the air. I noticed as he spoke, his left foot would lift off the ground and shake, like he had ants on his foot that were biting him. As soon as he stopped speaking, his foot returned to its normal place on the ground. "Why don't you come and join me? We could play tag just like the old days," the voice asked with a shaking leg. "Why would we do that? We can't even see each other in that fog," I asked, knowing there was no way we were getting off this porch. The leg shook once again. "I can see you two just fine. You can't see me?" Scotty spoke up before I could. "No, man, we can't, so why don't you stop acting all weird and stuff? Just come up and have another beer with us." The legs turned ever so slightly to face Scotty's direction. "Why? Tomorrow we are just going to go our separate ways again, aren't we? We will be back to our normal lives of working and placating our significant others, or soon-to-be significant others. Never seeing each other, maybe once a year. No more golf, no more drinking with the boys, and no freedom." Scott's legs started to shake ever so gently. "Come on, man, that's not true. We will make a point to see each other more. Tripp and I already talked about it," his voice cracking as he said it. "Come on, Scotty, you know that's never gonna happen. You know how this goes, you're married. How many times a year does your wife let you go to a bar or play golf? You had to beg her to come on this trip for your best friend's bachelor trip." Scott's legs shook more rapidly as the voice mocked, calling him Scotty just like his wife did, usually followed by a demand. "Expletive, you man. I do what I want to. It's y'all's significant others with the rope around your necks." He screamed at the legs in the fog. I had met his wife a few times, but even then I knew she didn't like us. My theory was proven true, as it was obvious Scott's nerve had been hit. "No, no, no. The truth of it is that your miserable wife, the one you wish you'd never married, will continue tightening the collar she has around your throat until you use that pistol, the one you keep in your car to end your miserable life. That is why you bought it, is it not? Why you didn't tell your lovely wife about it. You know you want to come down here and be with your friend, just like the old times." The voice relayed this information in a slow, even tone that made it sound as if this made no difference to him. This time as he spoke, his feet did not move, but Scott's did. "Why do I want to go down there, man?" Scott looked at me with a contorted visage of struggle and terror. I realized he had his hands white-knuckled on his knees, trying to hold them down, but they continued to jump up and down despite the pressure. "I think I am going to go down there, but I don't think I want to. I think it's making me." He started to raise up out of his seat. I was quickly out of mine as well, reaching towards him. A wave of dizziness and nausea hit me as I rose. Fighting back the urge to throw up, I said, "Scotty, something isn't right here, man. I don't think you will be back if you go down there." I put my hand on his shoulder, trying to push him back in his seat. He pushed me off with force, throwing me to the floor of the porch. As he walked off the last step of the porch, the fog began to move towards him, the legs stepping with it in sync with each other. The legs took its last step as it was almost toe-to-toe with Scott, and he looked back at me. "I'm sorry, man," is all he got out when hands reached out of the fog so quickly and pulled him into the gray abyss. Scott and the legs of Chris were gone into the fog. I yelled into the gray beyond with nothing but silence to answer. The nausea returned, and bile poured out of my mouth over the porch rail. When I had finished, I collapsed back down on the floor of my friend's porch. My dead friend, not dead, he's in the fog. I knew what I saw. I saw my friend go into the fog and not come back. Something was using his voice, but it wasn't him. Something had taken them, but all I could think about was if it was coming back to take me. After a minute, I pulled myself together and got back into my chair, thinking about what I should do. I need to call someone, but who? The police can't help with this. What would I even say if they could? How would they even get to me to help, as the fog blocked the only way to the house, and I had to believe it would take the police the same way it took Scott and Chris. As I sat thinking to myself, I saw it, and my blood froze. In the fog, Chris's boots were back, staring at me, with 2 bare feet standing beside him. Scott was back. As I type this up on my phone, they are talking to me. They tell me I can join them or go home and face bankruptcy over my hospital bills. That I will use every cent of my family's money to try and save myself, maybe fighting it off for 6 months at the most. 6 months alive, but not being able to walk without a walker or go to the bathroom without help. They tell me that when it gets really bad and I need help the most, my wife will leave one day and not come back. Who can blame her, really? Watching the one you love die in excruciating agony while leaving them in a hole of excrement so big they know they won't be able to climb out. They say if I love her, I'll stay with them. Make it easier on everyone. It'll be just like the old times, they say. I am typing this so someone will know what happened to me. As I type, I am smoking a cigar and drinking beer. My legs are not shaking like Scott's did. Scotty didn't want to go, but I do.